Now I love Gorons, you love Gorons, everyone loves Gorons. They are just the best allies ever seen in the Zelda series. Well, according to me at least, and every time I see them in the Zelda games, I become very happy, and I love it if they have a big role. For example, like we saw in Twilight Princess. And since all of you seem to like these types of videos, more can be found in the upper right corner by the way, but check that out after this video, I decided to do one on the Gorons. But they aren't enemies, so we will be looking at new types of characters and allies we could see in a Zelda game. And I've come up with some cool ideas, because believe me, Breath of the Wild gave us more options than you would think. And even the Goron in the thumbnail of this video inspired me, which was made by Rich Carey. So let's dive right in, because I'm quite excited to talk about my ideas. Now, in a lot of the Zelda games, we come across wise characters who usually have some sort of tie to the sages. Like Rauru, who's seen as an owl and ancient Hylian, and in the end we find out that he's the Sage of Light. However, this isn't the only wise man we have seen, because in Majora's Mask we see that the Gorons also have such characters in their clan. In Majora's Mask we see the Goron Elder, an aged Goron who acts as the tribal patriarch of the Gorons in Goron Village. But even though this is quite an interesting character, he's only used for one thing, teaching you the Goron Lullaby, which you need to beat the game. And even in other games like Twilight Princess, where we see a total of 4 Goron Elders, they do nothing special at all. They just give you pieces of a key that you need to open the door to the final boss of the dungeon. That's it. So clearly all of this is very boring. Personally, I want to see something more interesting. And I actually have an idea. I think the idea of a magic wielder is really cool. However, we barely see them in the series. So why not combine the classic Goron Elders with some sort of mage character? And this is quite easy to do because Nintendo has already set up everything we need. Because in Breath of the Wild we see one very important thing. Precious gems like the blue sapphire, which contains the very essence of ice, and there are many more of them. And they actually use this stuff to create weapons. Like the Frostblade, which is a magical sword forged in the frigid mountains of the Hebra region. And when the blade glows blue, enemies struck by it will be frozen. And all of this can be used to create some sort of Goron Mage character. They are known for mining after all, so they must have a lot of these gems. And those can be used to create some sort of magic staff. The others could use these as a way to attack and manipulate the world around them, using the powers of ice, fire, and electricity. This way the Goron Elders could do something more interesting. And I mean, it would also be pretty cool, and all of it fits very well. Gorons can become very old after all, so they would have enough time to learn the art of magic, and these special stones are probably a byproduct of their mining operations. So Nintendo, give me this, please. Now for our next Goron character, I want to talk about a type that we have sort of seen before, a Goron Warrior of sorts. And we've seen that in Twilight Princess where we fight a character known as Dan Goro. He's a gigantic Goron who guards the sacred hero's bow, and when you first enter the room, he believes you're an intruder and will attack. Personally, I quite like this guy and the fight that you have with him, but I think Nintendo could do a whole lot better than this. I want to see a Goron that's completely covered in thick plate armor, while he wields a big and powerful weapon. In a lot of ways, I want a character like this to look like a Dark Nut from Twilight Princess. That way he will be even bigger and certainly a lot scarier. Just imagine that thing coming right at you. It would certainly be more impressive than what we saw in previous games and titles like Hyrule Warriors. And when it comes to a weapon, something like a stone smasher would be a good fit. A two-handed weapon forged from some rare metal that's able to smash opponents flat. And of course it would be great if you had to fight this Goron in a one-on-one battle, similar to what we saw in Twilight Princess. That would be very cool at least. Now for our next Goron character, we will talk about something that we have never really seen before in a Zelda title, even though it would be very cool and could be quite fitting for a race like the Gorons. I want one that uses a cannon. I would call this character the Goron Gunner, and it's basically a big Goron that carries a cannon of sorts like a gun, which may sound very strange, but all of it is actually possible. We've seen bombs in many of the games after all, and even actual cannons. For example, they can be found in Twilight Princess and Snow Peak Ruins. Here they are spread across the entire dungeon. And in Breath of the Wild, cannons can be found and used around the Elden region, around Goron City and Death Mountain. So clearly they can create some sort of Goron or group of Gorons that uses cannons to defeat enemies and open certain parts of the map. This would be both amazing and useful in the game, because they could be used for a lot of things. For example, a segment in the game where you get attacked by Ganon's forces and have to protect some sort of fortress. In this scenario, these guys can help by bombarding enemies that rush towards your position. Aside from that, they can also be used to open paths in the world which are blocked by huge boulders. In a way, it would be very similar to the gigantic boulder that prevents you from going to Romani Ranch in Majora's Mask. Personally, I think something like this would be very cool. However, I have more cool ideas. So let's move on to the next one. Now, we all know that Gorons are quite strange creatures. Compared to all the others in the world of Hyrule, they seem odd. Their durable round bodies greatly resemble that of stones and boulders, and nearly all Gorons have a hide of rigid stones on their backsides. Aside from that, they can roll up like Sonic and roll around, have enormous strength, and can even breathe underwater. In a lot of ways, this doesn't make sense, but it is really the case. However, there's one thing I always wondered about. Could we see Gorons that are made of different types of stone? Their bodies are made out of that, but so far we've seen the same ones over and over. So why not introduce Gorons who have a back made out of a darker stone, or even gems like sapphires? This would certainly make those Gorons stand out, and would even give them an interesting look while rolling around. Their backs are completely blue or red, so obviously when they roll around you will see some sort of colored flash moving about. Heck, you could even combine this idea with the Goron Mages I talked about earlier, because it could be that they get their power from the rocky growth on their back. Like I said before, all the gems seen in Breath of the Wild are linked to certain elements, and contain the pure essence of them. Personally, I think this could make specific Gorons stand out, and it would certainly give them some more character. However, sadly enough, we've never ever seen something like this in the series. But I do hope Nintendo will mess around with this at some point. Now let's move on to our last one, which was inspired by the Goron seen in the thumbnail of this video. When I first saw it, I was amazed how pretty it is. But after that, I started thinking about something. What if we combine this guy from the thumbnail with a character like Barnes, the bomb maker from Twilight Princess? He appears at first inside the sanctuary, hiding along with the others, while the entirety of the Elden province is covered by the twilight. And when you purge the province from it, he discovers that his storage house has been destroyed, and so he begins making new bombs before reopening his shop. And as the game progresses, he manages to recover his lineup of products, including regular bombs, water bombs, and bombings. Now personally, I freaking love this guy. He's very animated, which gives him a lot of character, and overall he's quite funny. And throughout the game, he also has a crucial role because he supplies you with all the bombs you would need. So every now and then, you go back to him. However, after this game, he never came back, and sadly enough, we never got a character like this again. But I would love to see another crazy bomb shop owner. However, this time, it's a crazy Goron. He would have a shop somewhere on Death Mountain, and the first time you meet him, he almost kills you because he's experimenting with one of his new bombs. Overall, this character would be wacky, a bit like Barnes from Twilight Princess, but even weirder. And I bet Nintendo could do more than enough with this stuff, and it would be cool to see something like this again. We've seen Goron Bomb Salesman before in games like Majora's Mask, but in these titles, they are quite boring. They don't really have a character and just stand there selling you some gigantic explosive. So this more crazy Goron bomb seller would be quite fun and something new for once. So what do you think of my new Goron types and allies? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below, and don't be afraid to share your ideas as well. Thanks for watching everybody, I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to leave a like, tell me in the comments down below any ideas really. Subscribe and hit the bell button, and kisses from Wily. Mwah!